The first time I ever fell in love had to be when I made $5,000 in one day on the stock market. But if I could go back and start investing all over again, I want to share what I would have done differently. Even with all the successes and great returns, I think there are ways I could have done better. There's always ways that you could have gone about things better. I want to explore that today. I started investing young, so it wasn't the issue of not investing earlier, which is usually most people's first. What I wish I would have done better is just started earlier. I got my first job at 16 at Tim Hortons here in Canada. And I feel like, for someone that didn't have a lot of financial responsibilities, could have saved more. At that time, I didn't see the importance of really saving. You're going from maybe having to rely on your parents to sort of indulge in certain financial luxuries and kind of just like relying on them to just fulfill your basic needs. And then once I got my first job, it was sort of like this new sense of independence I've never really got to experience before when it came to my money. And I think I just went like a little crazy with it. Food, makeup, hair, like the typical things a young girl would be spending on. And I remember like my dad, he's an accountant. So at the end of the year, we would go through my tax forms and just see how much I made for the year. And I would look at the number and it would be like 16,000, 20,000. And I remember my parents kind of shaming me and making me feel like, where did all this money go? But it speaks to, really leading by example because they weren't people who saved. There's this understanding that saving is good, but a lot of people don't actually practice it. But yeah, definitely wish I would have started earlier because at 16, if I had saved even half of what I made per year, like let's say 10 grand for like 2 years leading up until university, that would have been 20 grand. And if I had invested that continuously until the end of my fourth year, like graduating, assuming I would have put a little bit more money in there over time, a little $500 here and there, by the end of university, I would have had maybe close to 40 to 50 grand. It definitely would have, I think my investments would have doubled just knowing the returns that I had when I started investing in university. If I had started at 16 and I was good at it, I probably could have doubled my returns because that's been my success story, right? Being able to double my returns. At worst, at minimum, maybe 25, 30 grand, at maximum 40, 50 grand. And that easily could have paid off my undergrad. I had to buy a car for my first job, which I lived in. It was about like an hour drive. So I definitely needed a car. I had to go into debt to buy the car outright, 13, 14 grand car, that easily I could have had I could have used my investments to pay that off and buy a car. So it just gives you an example of like how much time is on your side when it comes to investing. Yes, the earlier the better, but also that kind of moves into the next thing that I wish I had known before I invested, which is start small. Like you really don't have to have a lot of money to start. Yes, it's better if you have a lot of money to put in to your investments because you'll probably get more back within a shorter amount of time. Obviously, doubling $50 is different than doubling $5,000, right? But start with where you're at. If you know you can double $50, then when you make more money and when you start to put in more money into your investments, you will reap those same rewards down the road. It doesn't, I think there's this idea that you have to be super wealthy and like investing is really just limited to the rich. And that is very far from the truth. And I finally discovered that when I started investing for myself, just someone coming from a middle class family where like nobody invested in the stock market, to me, just like learning the ropes on my own, putting money in, experimenting for that first year. I'm experimenting strategically and with intention. I did a lot of research ahead of time, but just throwing myself into it and having seen the success that I saw with just starting off at first, it was $5,000, which is a lot of money. I didn't have to start with that, but it's how I invest that $5,000. which is, eventually what led me to see the success that I did. And another thing that I would say I wish I had known earlier is to get clear on my values. So this is actually a big, big, big one because most of the time the motivation behind investing is mainly for profits. It's like people just want to invest because, of course, you want to have your money work for yourself. And also, I think what's even more sparkly, of more of a glamorous sell to investing is winning big, right? Like getting rich quick. This idea that like I could just put money into the stock market and boom, if I bet on the right stock, I'll become a millionaire overnight. That's really farther from the truth. So at one point, I just, invested in ETFs. I was like, yes, this ETF looks profitable. And at one point, I started to go into my ETFs and really look at the breakdown of the companies. And I noticed for some of the ETFs that I was a part of, even though it was like labeled as a sustainable ETF, or even if it wasn't, it was just a traditional ETF, I saw that I was supporting companies that were against what I would want to be supporting, like certain fossil fuels, unhealthy fast food restaurants. I saw Coca-Cola there at one point, and at this point in my life, like I was really like the peak of like my wellness journey, like in terms of diet and health. And like I was very conscious about what I was putting in my body. I just felt like if I'm not consuming it in my own life, why would I invest in it? The issue with ETFs or mutual funds is you can't just take that little company out of the portfolio itself. Like it comes with it. So that would mean I would have to like find a whole different ETF to invest in. That really opened up my eyes and into realizing it's not just about investing because it's profitable, but also making sure like, does this align with my values? Am I going to be comfortable with where my money is going and who it's supporting? Because when you purchase a stock, you are essentially purchasing ownership, right? When you purchase a share, that's why they call shareholder. You're holding shares, part of the larger community that's also holding shares and investing in this company. So being a part owner of McDonald's is not something that I stand for. That made me realize if I had started over, I would have been more intentional about where my money was going, what I was investing in, and ensuring it's in alignment with my values and follows my 3P framework: profit, people, and planet. It has to be in alignment with all three, minimizing harm as much as possible for all three. And that's what just feels good to me. Another thing that I just want to talk about is ignoring the hype. I wish I would have ignored the hype a bit. I did have a few moments where I got caught up in trends. One would be the Beyond Meat example about how I made $5,000 in one day. It was an IPO. I had invested like on like day one or day two. Within that first week, I saw incredible gains, but it was really stressful. I had to watch that stock every day because it was volatile, right? It was like one day this is like the best product on the market, and then the next day there's like concerns, and so the stock drops a bit, and the next day there's like this new announcement that they make, and like all these people are backing Beyond Meat, all these celebrities, and so it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. And a lot of people were saying this stock is overvalued, it's going to crash. You have a little bit of that fear running in the back end, like, oh, my money's in it. It almost feels like gambling. It's like, there's potential, but then I can also lose everything. And I never want to feel on edge like that again. Like the day that I pulled out my money, when I made that $5,000 in that day, the next day the stock dropped by half. It was very volatile. When you're investing like that, or like if you're like a day trader, you constantly have to be watching the charts, watching the news, seeing what's happening. I honestly think that was just luck. Like intuition was just like pull out. I thought I could replicate that with other IPOs. Beyond Meat did so well. So anytime another IPO would come out, like Airbnb when they came on the market, Uber or like Lyft, for example, like a lot of those actually didn't perform well. And so I realized there's nothing wrong with investing in IPOs, but invest because you see long-term value, not because you think it's gonna like shoot up in price within weeks and you're gonna make a lot of money off of it. So I think Beyond Meat was like an example of where I got really caught up in trends and like the surge and the hype, and it could have costed me more. And I don't want to find out with another company. And just the feeling, like that experience of having to manage volatility, like literally every morning it's like checking to see where things are at. I don't want to check my stocks every day, right? And so I think that's something that I would be more mindful of moving forward. And if I had to start over, I'm not saying I wouldn't have invested in Beyond Meat because I made a lot of money. Moving forward, I'd be mindful, not just because everyone's hopping on something, I have to hop on it. And then I would just avoid saying right off the bat that investing is not for me. And I kind of touched on this already, but having this limiting belief or idea that in order to invest, you have to be rich already, when it's really like, no, just starting with where you're at with as little money as you have. The billionaires, the millionaires that we see today, a lot of them did not come from wealth. And so I think that is, if anything, very motivating and inspiring for me to realize that, like, actually, most people don't grow into wealth or have it just handed to them. Most people still had to work for it. And that's something that I definitely keep in mind and I'm willing to do through investing, realizing that not just accessing wealth and attaining wealth, but how do you maintain it? How do you keep wealth? Investing is the way that wealthy people do that. If you want to maintain your wealth, you have to learn how to have your money working for you in different types of investments, right? Because stocks is not just the only one. So, what I do want to celebrate here are the things that I did do right when I first started investing, because it all wasn't just like mistakes. I did a lot more research than I think most people would have probably done as a beginner investor. When I first started investing, I knew I had to have my basics down, looking at certain KPIs, watching the news, and a strategy that you often hear about in the investing space is diversifying. I diversified in different types of investment products. I had a blend of bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, and individual stocks. Even within those stocks that I would choose, like I said earlier, I had a mix, whether it was plant medicines like marijuana or tech stocks, and making sure that I was investing in different industries within the stocks that I was choosing itself. So different types of investment products, but also diversifying the industries I was investing in. So that was something I got from the very beginning, which I'm proud of. That spoke to my success. I'm not really panic selling, other than the Beyond Meat situation, which wasn't really like a panic sell. It was more just like, I think the stock might just go down today or tomorrow. Let me just take it out today. But I've never had very rarely have I had a situation where I'm like, I need to sell a stock. I rarely sell my stocks unless I'm doing a thorough audit or shifting my investment strategies. Other than the Beyond Meat situation, I've been good with managing my emotions while investing. I was prepped, trained. The books that I read, ahead of even putting my first $5,000 into the stock market talked about that already. So mentally, I was prepared to go into battle and to face those emotions. And from the onset, I always followed this ethos that anything I invested in were things that I consumed. And that's the strategy that I actually teach a lot of my clients. Because a lot of people go into investing and they're like, what do I even start with? Like what company should I put my money into? And it's like, put your money into things you are already a consumer of. You have an iPhone, buy Apple. Microsoft, I've been a Windows girly from day one. I'd invest in Microsoft. And yeah, just continuous financial literacy. Like, even as I was investing, continuing to listen to podcasts, read books, I think that speaks to why I've been so successful from the jump, is just continuing to seek out knowledge and to understand things and never feeling like, okay, I know it all. That's it. Like, continuing to be curious and in all aspects of my life, in all areas of my life, I think that definitely has spoken to my success. And I definitely feel like will speak to your success too. I think really what I want you to take away from this video is that investing is not as hard as it has to be, not as complicated as it has to seem. And I believe it's actually truly accessible because the barrier to entry is so low. You can start with $1, $10, 100. Like, you can start with really small amounts and slowly work your way up and start early so that all this money will compound over time with the interest. Make sure it's in alignment. Lead with alignment and values, getting clear on who you are, what's important to you, and recognizing that where you put your money is what you want the world to look like. Integrity is super important for me. And this is why I'm announcing right now my Ethical Investor Starter Kit. This resource for anyone who's just starting off with investing, anyone that wants to learn how to invest through a more ethical lens. Even if you've been investing for some time, how can you be more intentional about how you are investing? How can you ensure it is in alignment with my 3Ps framework, right? People, planet, and profit. Because there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to do things better. And if you've been chasing profits, like I said, and you're like, actually, you're making me realize I might be supporting things I don't want my money to go towards, and I want to have more agency. I want to take more accountability and like where it's going and ensuring it's making a positive impact in this world. The Ethical Investor Starter Kit is for you. I am so excited, and it's completely free. I am going to link that in the description below to go ahead, enter your name, email, that's all I need, and I will send you this Ethical Investor Starter Kit straight to your inbox. It is a 5-day email series filled with guides, bonus resources, checklists. I don't want to give away it all. There's like so many cute little bonuses and rewards that are in there. The only thing that I expect of you is to engage with me, okay? Because I know how overwhelming and complicated investing can be. And I want to make sure that I'm not just throwing information at you and you don't really know how to integrate it all. So at the end of each day in this email series, there are reflection prompts. I want you to answer every reflection prompt for the 5 days. You will get access to some bonus resources. This is to hold you accountable. This is also to develop a relationship with you, because I don't want to just be talking at you through my camera, through the screen. Like, I am a real person. I genuinely want to hold space for you. I genuinely want to help you. I want to see you maximize your wealth and to just build out this beautiful life, because your relationship with money is the healthiest it's ever been, okay? And so if you are ready for this last stage in your wealth wellness journey, investing is usually the last stage of your wealth building journey. You're about to learn how to master having your money work for you, and that is what's going to give you the freedom that everyone so desperately wants. This is how you can start. Start with the Ethical Investor Starter Kit. I am so excited. Please head to the description below to check that out. Comment below. Comment on what excites you about investing. Now that you know what, mistakes I went through or things that I would have done differently, what is one way that you are going to approach investing moving forward? What are some shifts, some things you might change in your approach to investing? If you're someone who's never invested before, maybe you might start to, work on some of those belief sets around being able to invest. Maybe you might go talk to a financial advisor, get curious, ask questions. I'm always here to help. If you really enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, share, and I will see you in another video.